Things you didn't know about maps and map technology with Adam Engst. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Slack, available to all patrons of MacVoices. Sign up today at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the second and final part of our conversation with Adam Engst of Tidbits about maps and mapping technology. In the first part, we touched on some specific use cases that Adam has that I personally really hadn't thought about. Maybe you hadn't either, unless you are a runner, a hiker, or a walker. This time, we talk about some of the map technologies that are already out there, longitude and latitude, and at least one other that is trying to replace that with something a little bit easier to remember and a little more precise, and whether it's catching on or not. Let's go back and let Adam do the talking. Yeah, there's so many things like this that you don't think about what it takes to maintain. It's one thing to build; it's a whole nother one to maintain.
Oh yeah,
and that's
and you've got some historical stuff going on too. So the other really kind of confusing one that I hit again through Glenn was a guy in Wales. So in the UK, you have postcodes. You're familiar with these? Sort of like US zip codes, but there's two parts to a postcode. And the first part is sort of the area, and then the second part is highly specific. So it could be, a couple of houses or an apartment building or something like that. And so the postcodes, if you like anything else, you put in a postcode in your GPS and it takes you there. Well, the problem was that if you put in a postcode that's not right, you make a mistake, or you put in one that's too new and that Apple doesn't know about yet, this guy who lives in kind of a rural part of Wales was having like 10 to 20 people a day show up in his front yard at the end of a one-lane dirt road that ended at his house. Like this was kind of problematic, and these people, and what turned out it was they'd build a new apartment, housing development somewhere in his postcode, and Apple didn't know about it. So when people put in the new postcode, it just said, I don't know, and defaulted to whatever its default location was for the kind of the larger area, which was mistakenly at his house. And again, it was like, so it took a while for that to get fixed. But it was interesting it didn't sort of roll out everywhere. I still have an original iPad running iOS 5, and if I search for his postcode in Maps in iOS 5, it still finds his. Or if I search for the general postcode, it still finds his house. So it fixed everywhere else, but not all the way back into iOS 5, and which I find fascinating in the sense that there must be code involved somewhere. It's not just Maps getting data from Apple servers.
Well, again, I would not have thought about the historical part. Just your Cornell example, his postcode example. That
stop changing.
Yeah, and there would be value. I mean, we see people renaming streets all the time, and it's like, would you please stop that?
Right.
I knew it as this, and now you're making it something else. But yeah, there's definitely value in having that historical data available. It just is a matter of how it's being accessed. And to your point, an old piece of software is more accessing the old location. Well, you know what? Come to think of it, it's sort of like URLs that go dead on the internet.
Yeah. But in URLs, you don't have to turn around in someone's yard. So.
Well, yeah. But it's equally frustrating to show up in on a page that you don't expect to. Depending on what's there, sometimes it may just be a 404. Sometimes those little visits can get more exciting.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, I guess sort of the big thing that I really kind of came across while I was writing the article and just thinking about all this stuff is just the level to which we use maps for a lot of different things. And the big ones are, I want to go to X location, take me there. That's easy. That's built in, no problem. I mean, it's great. It's a great feature. Don't get me wrong. I love GPSs and I've been using them ever since, they were standalone devices. But it's interesting, all the different ways that we think about maps and we use maps that really don't lend themselves, or you have to find a very specific tool to do what you want. And sometimes it's as simple as like, I don't know, I do this a lot. I take a screenshot in Maps, and then I edit it in Preview to put an X somewhere. Like here's where you're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I could sometimes you can send a pin, but that requires, sometimes you just want to say, look, you can see, in the context of this larger area where you're going very easily, and then the X marks the spot. And that's so much faster and better than just being told, yeah, here's a pin, go to the pin. Maybe my phone will take me there, but again, not if you're necessarily running, for instance, and don't have your phone with you, or anything else. So it's this kind of, I don't know, this realization of the level to which the maps still have power and have incorporated themselves and infiltrated themselves into our lives in so many different little ways.
You've taught me a lot here, because I didn't know that some of these services existed. I would not in my daily life have not thought of some of the use cases that you put them to on a regular basis. And you're right. I mean, we're starting to take things like GPS and the driving systems and all just completely for granted, because they're now part of our world. You don't think about it.
And they are, and I would like to know that I'm in no way suggesting that, like everyone should know how to read a paper map and follow it, and with a compass and all that. That, there are people who push that pretty hard, and they're like, it's like a GPS is a crutch. No, it's not. It's technology. Maps and compasses were technology, super cool technology, a couple hundred years ago, right? I'm sure there were people back then who were like, what do you mean you can't read the stars?
Yeah.
The moss always grows on the north side of the tree, you moron. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
Water flows downhill. You can find anywhere you're going. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So it's just the latest version of the technology. This came up. Actually, our county is doing a survey of asking people like how good their cell service is, and because the federal maps that actually, like, you see those on the carriers where they, like, you say, is my address got 5G or whatever, you'll see the maps. Those maps suck. They're really optimistic, put it that way. If they say you don't have service, you really don't have service.
Don't have service.
But so yes, the county is doing this survey, and one of the things I was encouraging people to say is, like, if you go to trails, like where if you want to use your phone while you're on a trail, put some of those locations in. This is just a survey. It's not, we're saying it needs coverage, but there's a lot of people who head out into the wilderness with nothing more than their phone, assuming that they'll be able to map their way out of it. And if you don't have Run-Go set up ahead of time, you do need that cellular service. And I got a few people, saying, grumble, people should be able to read a map with a compass and all that. I was like, bull. At best, these people have a compass on their phone. They don't know how to use a compass. They know how to use their mapping technology, the stuff that we've all become accustomed to over the last 10 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't expect people to go backwards in technology, to become familiar with older technologies at all times.
I'm just checking. I want to make sure I was going to refer to this properly, but I'm sure you're familiar with what three words.
I am familiar with what three words, and there are a bunch of those things.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you explain.
Okay, yeah. So
what
I haven't used what three words, but basically the idea behind what three words and a number of these other services is you can give every spot. I don't know how big they are inherently, and what three words, and different ones are different. But you can give every spot a unique identifier. So it's sort of like a URL in some ways, right? What three words? Every spot, of course, has a latitude and longitude, but that's, who can read latitude and longitude?
Yeah, numbers,
right? It's just numbers, and they're big, complicated numbers with like 3 digits of precision to be able to find where you are. So what three words basically divides the world up into a grid of some sort of, I forget, is that one hexagons? And
I'm not sure.
And then gives each hexagon 3 unique words. And the idea is that you could then remember a location and share it by giving someone those 3 words. None of these things have really caught on. I did get email from a guy who has come up with yet another one. I'd have to go, and I don't remember the details, but it looked like one of those things where it's like yet another, like, we'll divide the world up. Oh no, his was interesting. His was based on, you identified, like in a city, you identified a central structure that everyone would know, like the Empire State Building. And then you would give directions in his system by clocked directions, like 1 o'clock from the Empire State Building, and distances out. So it was radians. It wasn't clear to me this was easier.
No, that doesn't sound easier at all.
I mean, a lot of these things suffer from that they might be easier in certain ways, but they're so much harder in others. And what I think it really comes down to is people usually don't care to know the identifier of their location. They just want to point at it. Like, I want to go here. I can see it, and we have sufficient address capabilities with maps that really replacing that is going to be one heck of an uphill battle.
I agree, but what 3 words really intrigues me, because I guess it's easier. It's definitely easier to remember than longitude and latitude, to be able to say it. But I've just pulled up their website, and I think they're looking at someplace in New York City, and that particular location is Clip Apples Leap. So if you put Clip Apples Leap into what 3 words, you know exactly where that point is, and that would seem to have a whole lot of appeal. Again, you have to have cell service or something, to make it useful. And that probably wouldn't help you out in the wilds when you're out running. But at the same time, just the idea that I could say that to someone, and now I don't have to worry as much about, what's the address or anything. What's the number? Did I spell the street name right? It's just, here are my 3 words to get to my house, which I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, I was going to tell you mine, because mine are pretty cool. Whisk's Bachelor Global.
Ooh, yeah, that is cool. Mine's not nearly that cool, so I'm not telling you mine.
It's funny. I mean, like, on the one hand, it is interesting in that again, you can memorize 3 words very easily, but it's not clear to me that you would how you would really use it beyond. Like, I'm looking like at a neighbor's house down the road, is eliminate heap crusts. It seems like it would be so, like, it would be fine for memorizing yours, and then someone could tell you one that you might be able to keep in short-term memory a little bit longer than an address. But as soon as it's, I'm not going to remember eliminate heap crusts in half an hour, guarantee. So.
Okay, so some of the use cases I've heard about this used for, and let's go back to your running example. So you're
I just hit one that's intruding, enchanting, massaging.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think this is going to be way too problematic.
Yeah. Well, no, but okay. So let's just say, and this is a service, so you can have this on your phone. But if you come to my house and you say, I'm going to go out for a run, okay, go down, take a right, go down to the park, and you get down there and you start to have chest pains. All right. So you know that you're at a park near Chuck's house, but you may or may not have seen a sign that said where you are. And so you hit 911. Where are you? Well, okay, there are GPS services available there, but wouldn't it be a lot simpler if this could be integrated in with the service to be able to say, I'm at, Clip Apples Leap. And they're going to know exactly, not that you're in Fisher Park, but that you are exactly, at that spot in Fisher Park.
Well, I'm just looking here. Sunny Slope. Okay. So what 3 words uses a grid? That's like graph paper, and it's really specific.
Exactly.
I mean, sort of too much so. So, for instance, when I said what my address was, well, my house has 16 of these.
Right. Yeah. So we know if you're in the basement, if you're in the back part of the house, we know what room you're in, Adam.
doesn't do height, I don't think. So I don't know if it'd get me upstairs or downstairs, but
yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I guess so. If you wanted very, very precise location, they must say what the size is, but I'm guessing it's 10 by 10, something like that. They must say.
I knew at one point. I've honestly forgotten because I didn't know where this discussion was going to go, or I'd have looked it up.
I see. They're talking also about like entrances. Yeah, I was close. 3 meter squares, 9 by 9.
Yeah. So
so that's why. Yeah. So 3 meter squares. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's. I guess if you're trying to give so what it's useful for is actually not so much an address is actually not that helpful, because I don't the address for my house. I have no idea what that went to. When I typed in an address and it gave me one, and I don't know what that was.
Today's Mac Voices is supported by the MacVoices Slack. The MacVoices Slack is where you can connect with the members of the MacVoices Live panel and other MacVoices patrons. Get in on the discussions, agree or disagree with our opinions, and get your voice heard. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. And thanks for supporting MacVoices.
Now, clearly what we need to do is merge what 3 words with Wordle.
Oh, please don't take me there. I have too many friends that are into Wordle that keep saying, "Are you into Wordle?" No, I'm not into Wordle. Get off my lawn.
Aw, it's Hangman Chuck.
I'm not a gamer, Adam, of any stripe. So,
well, neither am I, but I do enjoy Wordle, I'll admit. So,
that's good.
But I'm a word person, so. Any event. So yeah, no, I mean, this kind of thing could be interesting. So what 3 words is much more about very, very specific location rather than directions, which is kind of an interesting difference again in terms of how you can think about maps. And that a 9 meter square identifier, or sorry, a 3 meter square identifier of the world is something that could be really useful in very specific situations. But it does feel as though, and it's interesting. Like I would actually have to think about how to feed this into something in a useful way, because I guess it has its own. Does it have its own app? It must have its own app.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd want to like if you were. Yeah, they have an App Store app. You'd want to be able to say, take me to. It's a little like dropping a pin in Google Maps or Apple Maps and then navigating to the pin. Right? So say you're going to a stadium and you have to enter at a particular spot in the stadium. There's a big area there that you could have to wander around. And so, having this, having someone either share that, the what 3 words, like the literal direction that you're going to, the little spot that you're going to, or to be able to find it on a map and then point to it and then ask, the app to give it to you could be useful. So, and you can find an actual sheep. You could have a sheep that's like in a very specific spot in a field. Just saying. The sheep could move from square to square. I'm just
yeah, okay.
You could put GPS trackers on your sheep, and it could.
Well, the more we talk, the more I think about how useful some of this stuff can be. Not just what 3 words, but our phones now attach GPS data to our photos, so that we know exactly where and when in time that photo was taken. if we
Right.
choose to share that information. So, all this stuff, it all fits
Or more to
together.
the
You
point, not
don't.
where you choose to share it, because I mean, sharing it's actually not that interesting. What's interesting is searching. So
Yes.
I took a photo on my vacation in California, and you can just kind of like, oh, it was at this. Like, I don't remember the beach. I don't remember. I just remember it was Northern California. Up on the way here. Like, oh, look, I can just kind of zoom around in California, and the map will show me the selections of photos that I took. And so, it's not useful in places that you visit a lot. Like, I have a lot of pictures taken in my house. That's not helpful. But the number of pictures I've taken in California or Florida or Alaska or whatnot, much, much smaller. And a way to find those becomes that location-based data. Now, we did do an article. Oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name who wrote this for us. But he was interesting because what he would do is he would take on vacation, in some foreign city, he would take a picture of something he wanted to get back to. And then he would use the location. There were ways of getting to the location data. This is a couple of years ago, and it wasn't quite as easy. Using the location data in the photo to feed it into maps to be able to recreate, retrace steps and go back to a spot. Which again, you have to start thinking a little differently, that objects like photos, in essence, have this metadata associated with them that is usable in some interesting way.
And in ways that up till fairly recently, no one would have ever thought about because the tools weren't there. I mean, longitude and latitude have always been there, but who was using them, for anything significant? But now, you have all these other options that are literally in the palm of your hand with your phone, or on your sheep. Who knows?
I assume all sheep have GPS now.
Okay.
I mean, little Bo Peep, she lost her sheep. She needed GPS.
Oh, gee. Oh boy. Okay. This show is really off the rails now, boy. Oh God.
Just saying, modern shepherdesses.
Shepherdesses? Yeah, I guess so.
I believe that little Bo Peep was, at least at the time, referred to as a shepherdess. Nowadays, I'm sure she would just be a shepherd.
Yeah.
Because probably we've removed the gender specificity from the position. It's not a word I use a lot, I will admit.
No, I was going to say that's probably the first time that shepherdesses have ever been mentioned on MacVoices. So this is a first right here. Adam, thank you. When we were joking, honestly, when you said you want to talk about mapping, I thought you were talking about, how you map this file to open in that app or something like that. I had no idea where we were going with this. But it does. You do have to step back and think, okay, I've got these assets and these capabilities now at my command. What can I do with them?
Yeah. And I mean, I still remember, I think it was Bill Clinton who actually changed the rules for GPS, because until that time, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but until that time, GPS had been limited to, I forget the number, greater than 2 meters accuracy, something like that. That basically he took away the artificial limitation on GPS accuracy, and like suddenly everything got better and better and better because of that. I mean, the stuff that people use that for now is insane. I mean, like, there are scientists that use it to track, movements of tectonic plates, which is really, really, really small movements over a long period of time. But, you've got that level of accuracy now with some of these kinds of things. And so, it's just tremendously impressive. And it's one of those, I get this a little bit. I mean, I realize I'm segueing here a bit, but people whining about, oh, this is too expensive, or it's harder than it used to be, or whatever. I was like, the magic of the technology that we have now is insane. Stop whining. I mean, we have stuff that makes the science fiction of not that long ago seem quaint. that just built into the everyday infrastructure of our lives. So, I don't know. I just sort of like to step back periodically and go, "Wow, that's cool." I would have so killed for this in 1985. When we had nothing.
And some people will look at us and say, well, you guys are just getting a little age on you, and so you're looking back to the way it used to be. And it's like, yeah, I prefer to think of it as perspective on it. But even if you're a kid, just okay, forget what was, and forget Adam and I talking about it. What are you going to do with what you have? What can you do now?
Yeah, right.
Because we did it with the early Apples and Macs. That we weren't all, well, I don't know about you, but I wasn't all that exactly interested in the computers of the 50s and 60s. It's okay, I've got this magic box in front of me. Now, what can I do with it? I mean, it's fun to geek around, but that's always been my thing is how can this make my life better or me more productive or, whatever measure I want to use.
Yeah. No, I mean, what we're talking about now, the magic of today's technology is table stakes for everyone who's new. That's, I mean, and that's important. So it's important to realize both, that one, oh my goodness, we have stuff that is was unimaginable 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And on the other hand, people who are growing up with it now, it's table stakes. They can't imagine a world without it. So, both are true. Share a very quick story to close out, because I think it indicates a little bit of like where we are in the world. Tanya was telling me the story. She I think she heard about an NPR or something. It's a woman in Ukraine who, left Ukraine for Poland, and then she kind of was a refugee and kind of got settled a little bit. And then she goes back to the border to help translate because she speaks a bunch of different languages. And so she's helping at the border for people who don't speak Polish. But speak Ukrainian, and she does this every day, except from 2 to 4. Every day, because from 2 to 4, well, she taught economics in high school in Ukraine, and she's still doing her class via Zoom.
Wow.
I mean, in the midst of all of this, high school kids can still take their economics class over Zoom from 2 to 4 every day. That, again, just the concept of how the world has changed, that just encapsulates it all. That this person could have done this in World War II in terms of like fleeing a war-torn country and then, going back to help with translation and all that. But the stopping to teach your class in high school for the people who are either still in the Ukraine or spread around as refugees, but still have internet access and can still continue to take high school, that's insane. That's just completely and utterly different. And as it encapsulates a little bit of, wow, we've got table stakes. Table stakes technology now is impressive stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we've just been through the pandemic, and the options. I mean, I know there were parents out there, and we'll both probably get letters, growling about, well, Zoom was so difficult, or Google Meets or Teams was so difficult. And it's like, okay, so it might not be perfect. Maybe that's because of the technology, maybe because it's you. But at the end of the day, you didn't have that option at all 10 years ago.
Just a few years ago. Just a few. I mean, yeah. And so, right. And so, I mean, there's lots and lots of terrible stuff's happening in the world. I mean, it's unavoidable. Whether it's the pandemic or the Russian invasion of Ukraine, bad stuff happens. But we're better off in a lot of ways because of the technology we have underpinning how we can live our lives throughout the bad stuff. 20, 30 years ago, the pandemic would have just completely flattened so much of the world because there would have been, we've been faxing stuff, for goodness sakes.
What did you say, quaint? Yeah, that seems so quaint nowadays.
Yeah, quaint. Yeah. I've been rewatching Northern Exposure, and they fax stuff periodically because it's the mid-'90s. And I was like, oh, wow, faxes. I remember faxes. They were terrible. I hated faxes even when they were new.
And then we did the fax to email. And then after a while, just like, just Let's cut out the middleman and just do email.
That's right. That's right. And now we have full internet video. I mean, high resolution, complete interactivity around the world, no lag, or we complain if there's like a millisecond lag that we notice, So yeah, it's an impressive world.
It is.
But yeah, the mapping, the complete mapping of the world is definitely part of that, and that's just what I hope people will think about a little bit and think, hey, maybe you'll be able to do something new with maps that you hadn't thought of before.
Adam, thank you. You kind of opened my eyes to some things I really had not thought about. I've got to go and figure out, what else I can do with it, or what what problems it might solve for me. I don't know that I have any specifically, but give it time. Somebody will figure out one and say, "Here's your solution."
Yeah, so, take a screenshot and put an X in the screenshot with preview, and you'll be all set.
Yep, exactly.
Go here. X marks the spot.
So if folks don't know, where can they go to follow what you do and to read your article about maps and everything else?
Man, now I'm looking for my 3 words. Let's see. That would be www.tidbits.com.
I think you did it. Good job. Good job. Adam, thanks so much. Hey, come back when the next subject to stump me. You're always welcome.
It's going to be introduce Chuck to something new.
Yeah, a new series. Won't be hard. Thanks, Adam.
Always fun, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Yeah, this is turning into kind of a thing. Teach Chuck some new things. I like this. I like this a lot. So let me know what your 3 words are. Maybe I'll show up on your doorstep at some point. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.